Hello, welcome back, and today is another episode of Composting Broken Down, where I'm going to show you how you can start making your very own compost at home for the first time. And today I'm going to show you the composting process and what materials you need and how to source them. And I apologise because it's very, very windy today. I found a more sheltered position in the garden now, so there shouldn't be as much wind noise. And so to start off with, there's two main ways that you can make compost. There's a longer way, which I call the layering or the Lasagne Method, and there's a shorter way which you can make it in a couple of months called the mixing method. And I use the quicker one because I'm impatient, and both of these methods can both be sped up by using compost activators. And some of these compost activators include grass clippings, human urine, which is a bit disgusting but it works, fresh horse manure, and just any sort of manure really. Things that get really hot in the compost can really activate it and make it go quicker. And the Lasagne method is where you layer all of your materials. So it's really good to get a good balance of both greens and browns in the Lasagne method, because you can see where the layers are and you know how much you've put in each material. Whereas with the mixing method, what you do is on a very regular basis you can turn it. And with the Lasagne method you do turn it, but you can turn it once or twice in about a year and it'll be ready in 9 to 12 months. Whereas with mixing it can be ready in 2 to 4 months, I'd say, if you mix it every day like I do. And with the mixing one, you mix it every day with a fork, or you can turn it into a new bed, or new bin, sorry. And if you want to see new bin, how to get a good compost bin, check out my last video in this series, which will be up there. So I'd just like to take some time out this video to make sure that you've gone down below, hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon so that you're notified next time I upload a video in this series or any other video. So now that I'm going to speak about the materials, and with materials there's two sections or categories. There's the greens that are high in nitrogen and the browns which are high in carbon. And these should be put in a ratio, and the ratio is a rule of thumb is you should put double the amount of browns in that you put in of greens. So that's 1 part greens and 2 parts browns. Some of the things that go in the green category are lawn clippings and weeds and things that are literally are green that you've just harvested. Anything that's green and high in nitrogen. And there's some things also that can be a bit of a misconception normally. Things like horse manure that's well rotted, or some used coffee grounds. They are green, but some people might think they're brown because they are brown. So just bear that in mind. So that's manure and coffee grounds that are used. They are actually greens because they're high in nitrogen. And don't worry about using coffee grounds because they're not too acidic. Because once you've passed them through a coffee and through water, the acidity is mostly in the coffee, so it doesn't really matter. And some of the things that go in the browns category are anything that's dried out. So you can even turn a green into a brown. So such as hay, and I've got a video up here on how to make hay. And hay, you can turn a green material, freshly cut grass, into a dry material, which is great because then you can put the same thing in twice to make compost, which is really useful. But ideally you want to vary what you've got in there for a really good all-round structure of your compost. And some other things that are in browns are dried leaves, even garden soil you can put in, quite well rotted wood chip, used compost in pots. There's really quite a lot of them, and I might even leave a list of them down below in the description to make sure that you know exactly what are the main greens and browns. And also another green that I forgot to mention earlier is food scraps from your kitchen. Some more browns include newspaper, non-glossy paper of course, or you can even use notepad paper if you've used it, as long as it's non-glossy of course again. And also cardboard, so corrugated cardboard boxes. But sometimes the glues in these can be a bit bad and they don't break down very well. So that's why I always use newspaper. So now I'm going to tell you how you can do each method. To do the Lasagne method, you literally just layer the greens and the browns on top of each other. And over about a year, 9 months to a year, they'll all compost down. But with the mixing method, what you do is you cut them, what I do is I cut them into small bits. So things like grass clippings are already in small bits. But what this does is it increases the surface area for the microbes to be able to break it down. And what I do here is I get some garden shears and I put it in a wheelbarrow and I just break whatever it is up. And then what you do is daily or every day or weekly even, is you go out there and you turn it with a fork, which means it gets all the air in there, which is, as you'll know in the last episode, it helps the microbes respire, which also helps the compost break down. So this is how I mix my compost on a daily or every other daily basis. You just stick it in and you turn it with your arms like this to try and get the air and flick it around a bit. And as you can see, this is almost ready, it's doing quite well. And that stuff, you won't believe it from looking at it, I only started it about a month or two ago, which is why I love the mixing method, because it might not be fully broken down when you get it out, but the thing is, it'll keep breaking down whilst it's on the soil. Not all the composting goes on in here, some of it goes on in the soil. And now I'm going to talk to you about the method of composting in a wormery, because it's slightly different. There's also another method I'll talk to you about that doesn't even involve a compost bin after that. So in the wormery, obviously you don't need to turn it at all because the worms turn it for you. And the worms are doing most of the work in a wormery. So what you do here is you still layer it, a bit like the Lasagne Method. But what you do is you put in, when you start off the wormery, you put a layer of dampened wood newspaper, and then what you do is you put a layer of your food scraps, and every time you put food scraps or anything for the worms to break down in there, you should put at least 2 inches of the wettened newspaper. And what this does is it keeps a moist environment for the worms, and it also gives them some air breathing space underneath, which they really, really like. And trust me, if you don't put this newspaper in on top, they don't break it down nearly as fast. So another method is where you just dig a trough in your garden, which does go against my no dig method. You dig a trough in your garden and you put your food scraps and anything you want to compost in the right ratio straight into the ground. Or you could even put more nitrogen than browns in here, because the soil is a brown. And if you put this down, say in autumn once the beds are free, it'll mean that the soil will be perfect and ready for the next season. I hope you learned something from this video, and next Saturday, again at 3 PM, I'll be uploading another video showing you what you can do with the compost. So once the compost's ready, how you use it, which I think is going to be the end of the series. So this short series, the playlist will be on the end screen of this video if you want to click on that, or obviously in the cards up there from the start there will be last week's video. I hope you enjoyed, thank you for watching, I'll see you next time.